stop it, everything becomes stagnant. That means death. What happens to just to give you a for instance, what happens to a flowing stream that gets bottled up and can no longer flow? What happens to that water? Oh well, I keep it's like me teaching my class. What happens is it stagnates and then becomes a swamp and then becomes fetid, and that water and everything around it dies. Well, Polaris is the center star. In fact, okay, hold on a minute. Hold on a minute, honey. I'm on the air, sweetheart. Yeah, I'll call you right back, baby. That was wifey. What was I saying? Yeah, Polaris essentially is if you look at the British flag, they call it the Union Jack. Well, that Union Jack is essentially the symbol of Polaris because they say that the Great Britain is the 0 point on the latitude and longitude. So Polaris is supposed to be the North Star, but it's the center point that doesn't move, and everything centers around it, which shows that we are in an enclosure.
Mm.
We are not swimming or hurtling through space at 65,000 miles an hour while the clouds are standing still. It's ridiculous. So if you're dealing with the northern lights and the soul stream, what you're looking at when you see the stream, you're not looking at the stream. If you've ever watched a stream flow, you could see thousands of different ways and shapes that the water takes as it bounces over rocks or it takes on different. Sometimes it pools and goes into a whirlpool and then keeps going. Well, as everything as the dome rotates, what you're looking at is the hieroglyphics that was set in place that beamed down certain configurations that matched your brain. If you look up at the skies, you'll see that it matches succinctly the electrical patterns in your brain. The
Mm.
star clusters and the star configurations match the way your neurons work.
Mm.
So what you got is a synergy, a synergism. And of course, your soul is interacting with that because the brain essentially is controlled by the heart, and the heart itself, there's a brain in the stomach, a brain here in the heart, and a brain up here. This one is the spiritual brain, this one is the material brain, and this one is the one controlling both of them, where you in the upper room, Christ, are having the last supper or the last meal with all 12 of your apostles. Who do you think the 12 apostles were? The 12 signs of the zodiac. He was the 13th, or Ephiusius, which they took out of all of the procession of the zodiac. There was a 13th sign, and it was the sign of the alchemist. They took that away in between Sagittarius and I believe it was in between. It's between Sagittarius and I think it was Capricorn, or it was between Scorpio and Sagittarius. You'll find out.
Mhm.
But they took Ephiusius away from out of there because of what it represented. And if you focused on that part, you would see that that had a lot to do with the evolution of the soul at that point, because that's what alchemy was. Alchemy was changing from the body consciousness into soul and spirit consciousness. So
Mm.
if you're dealing with the so-called northern lights, the northern lights are essentially nothing more than the north part of here. If you talk about this part here, right here, this front part is north. Okay, this south part here, which is the passion. North is the place where your frontal lobe is. The frontal lobe is where reason takes place. That's why you see the Moors talk about coming out of the what? North gate.
Mm.
The
Deep.
south here, which is essentially the serpent brain, that's the passion brain. So this is north, this is south,
Mm.
this is east, this is west. I can't explain it any further than that until I have to give you prerequisites to what I'm talking about, but that's a capsulation of it.
Indeed. Um, Dr. Valentine, when you die, some people say to follow the light and others say to stay in the darkness. What do you think?
Interesting because it depends on what and who it is that is telling you that. Follow the light to where? You are the light. Who are you following? A lot of people were saying, I don't know if you have ever seen me talk about a book um, that was written by Val Valerian. Um, it was, I forgot what it's called. You
With
remember?
the Matrix books?
Matrix.
Not the,
That's right.
yeah,
Matrix
yeah,
books.
yeah.
Remember what he's saying that there are entities that have set up technologies that when you pass on, they have the way of trapping that energy that is left and trapping it to the point where it puts it, if you don't know what you don't take the consciousness of awareness with you at your death, then that soul is trapped and placed back into the body they want, which is
Mm,
normally a body that is actually going to grow into a drone. So you have to be very mindful. You have to become seriously conscious of what you are first and who you've become and are ready to jettison the fear of death. That's what we teach at our university, to take on the shaman's mentality of life. Because life, to them, all of it was a preparation for the moment of your death.
mm,
Because at the moment of your death, if you do not leave your body consciously and with joy, because they say, my whole life flashes ahead of me or before me.
mm-hmm,
That's the time when you are going through an assessment. That's your judgment day.
mm-hmm,
That's the point where you're being judged. You're not being judged by some God in heaven and you're going to sit there with Peter's book and all this bullshit.
mm-hmm,
You are now setting up, when you're looking back in your life, what have you done? What are you sorry for? What are you happy about? All these things are going to flash back because they're memories in the subconscious. As you're leaving the body, the subconscious is leaving with it.
mm.
So the subconscious starts shooting all kinds of information to the conscious mind. And so you say, well, my whole life is passing before me. Yeah. What have you placed into that cachet? What have you placed into the vault of your subconscious? That when that time comes and it's opened, what are you fearful of? What are you ashamed of? Have you left anything that would be a legacy to make someone else greater than you? Remember what I always taught? That if a teacher isn't teaching the student to be greater than he or she, then that's a pimp.
Mm.
And that's what we here at the university believe. That's what I want to do. I want to make everyone that I touch greater than me because you're the future.
Mhm.
Suppose I want to come back through one of you all and
Mm.
you're dumb as fucks. What I'm gonna do? Who gonna teach me what who I am and what I am? I want to come back to youth who are brilliant in spirit as well as technology. And if I'm going to come back and be raised by a mother and father like that, then I'm going to just hit the ground running. Otherwise, I'm going to take the mindset that I have and become the best criminal there is.
Mm.
It depends. How are you
Mm.
leaving? What have you left? How you're leaving and what you've left.
Doc is giving some deep answers to your questions, family. I hope y'all appreciate what this man is doing. One way to show your appreciation is to sign up for his webinar, as well as if you even want to go even deeper, sign up for the Brothers University. I think that's for when you serious. You know what I'm saying, family?
Oh yeah,
So yeah, thanks for tuning in. We're gonna take about two more. You got two more questions you could take, Doc?
yeah, sure.
Let's take two more questions and then we're going to get out of here, family. But I definitely, we got about 3,300 people in the chat. Definitely appreciate everybody for joining us tonight. Let's get to this question. Can getting beat as a child suppress your soul?
Oh yeah. Well, what did you do to bring that particular karma to you? Everybody feels that, of course, the child is being, and of course, you have to come to the rescue of that child. because then you're trying to save that child. But who are these creatures? Who are the entities that are coming back, that are being punished so, that are being tortured so? What is that contract that you create, that you draw that to you? There are no accidents.
Mm.
Most people think that, hey, no, this is horrible thinking. Well, the thinking and the act of participation are linked, even though you're a child. Remember, a child is not a child, it's only a physical child. That's an old soul coming back to go through the crucible once again. Now, does that sound heartless? Yes, it does sound heartless. But beating on a child like that, unless you are doing it with righteous intention, and you get the parent that actually is curbing what it is that became an appetite that destroyed you in a previous life, you chose your own karma to bring you back into balance. Is this what you did to someone else? But you come back as a child now, and of course, being a child, it's, oh my God, how you can talk like that, Dr. Valentine? That's a child. Yeah, it's a child today in this life.
Mhm.
But what was it before? I don't mean it to impersonalize it. Who was he or she before? And so, no, it's not good to be the child. I did. I got my ass whipped if I did something wrong and kept doing it. The belt didn't get to come down until you did it 2 or 3 times.
Mm.
But I remember my grandfather was a brute. He came up as a brute. My grandfather, my grandmother, my mother told me about his stories about him being tied to the bed. All of this kind of stuff. And when I saw what was going on with me, and my father was military, straight up military killer, a lot of bodies, mentally, learned a lot from him, got burnt by him. And then when I came to that particular resolve, I said, I ain't never going to do that to mine. Why? Because I was the one that was going to stop it right here. And I
Mhm.
did.
Mm.
And every time I would have any kind of chastisement, you can ask my son. I wouldn't beat on them. What I would do is talk to them right in their face. And then what would happen is, since the limbic system and the frontal lobe is where you have your highest thoughts, I used to take my knuckles and this be his head, and I would go, "Is anybody in there?"
Mm.
And that would drive him crazy. He hated that, but he got it.
Mhm. Mhm.
He got it because every time he do something stupid 2 times, 3 times, that's when I would knock at that part of his highest mind. Where is anybody in there? Are you occupying this part of your brain?
Mm.
So no, I don't condone beating on a child, but I have to look at it impassionately, like an intelligence. The intelligences are there to dispassionately look at the movements of life and just make sure that whatever you're doing is in balance. If it's not in balance, the intelligences move in and force you back into balance. And that sometimes is what comes out as the brutality or as the accident that takes lives or cripples and so forth. There
Mhm.
is no accident, actually.
Let's get to this question, Doc. This is going to be the last question for tonight, family. Can Doc explain the star Betelgeuse's dimming and its relevance in Egyptian cosmology?
Betelgeuse is supposed to be this incredibly bright star that's supposed to be coming into our reality. This is what I've learned of it. The dimming is temporary. There's going to be a burst of light coming out of that region of the dome that is going to light up the sky so that there's no more night. This was what was prophesied.
Mm.
And as far as its relevance in Kemetic eschatology, um, that star itself was essentially Bethlehem, supposedly the house of bread. It was supposed to be the coming that tells of a new paradigm, structure of paradigm, but it was supposed to light up the sky to the point where it was supposed to be some kind of explosion, but it wasn't an explosion. And as far as Betelgeuse is concerned, it also is supposed to be a representation of Lucifer.
Mm. Wow. You know, Doc, I had a dream about a year and a half ago. Maybe you can help me make sense of it before we get out of here. I was doing a show. I had a show with Billy Carson, and we was talking about remote viewing. And I remember I went to bed that night and I dreamed that I went somewhere and everybody was just staring at the sky and it was like the stars, everything was so close, like how the sky is far from us. Everything was like these are the people and this is the sky right here. It was like real close to them. And I asked where I was. They told me I was in Andromeda. And I remember looking back at Earth and I was asking, I seen something happening and I was like, what's going on? And they said, oh, they're turning the souls into iron. I remember them saying that's where they turn the souls into iron. And you mentioned iron earlier. That what made me think about that dream I had. Does anything I just said make any sense, or that maybe you could expound on it for me, Doc?
Well, it's interesting that you said that the sky was this close.
Yeah.
That's your brain, the part of your brain. If you could remember the configuration of the sky
Mm-hmm.
at the time that that happened, you can see what part of your brain was trying to give you information.
Mm,
Because the sky above, all of the stars you see, the billions and trillions of stars you see, are actually what are part of your brain.
mm,
And what you would see in the form of stars, or what would most, like, if you would see it in almost in a hologrammic or holographic, almost 360-degree surrounding thing where it's almost sitting on top of you,
mm,
that's you now reaching into the roof of the brain, which is where we call the colostrum. This is where Santa Claus comes down the chimney
mm,
and bathes the brain, gives gifts to the brain.
mm,
Well, you essentially could have been essentially interfacing with a thought process that matched with sky configurations that you remember seeing, and now that linked in with the way that the mapping, the cerebral mapping of the brain matches what you saw in the sky,
sorry,
and
yeah.
that then became something that kind of lowered to you. You should find out what that particular thought pattern really represented, because each thought pattern has a particular electrochemical signature.
Mm.
Each thought has an electrochemical signature. And if you could remember what that thought, you said iron.
Yeah, when I asked them what's going on in Earth, they said that's where they turn the souls into iron. They
Well,
turn
that
them into
would
iron.
then you were probably getting that information about the fall of man. If you're dealing with the fall of man, essentially the fall of man is that we lost the green skin. What happens in the fall?
The leaves turn from green to brown.
There you go.
Mm,
Melanin is not just black. It's not just brown. Melanin is green too. And melanin, there's in my book I write about something I call prismatic melanin. Prismatic melanin is what we see on brothers and sisters, like the deepest and the darkest. I'm talking about charcoal black, beautiful skin, like the Senegalese. And if you were to look at them in the earliest days, you'll see that they were black. And remember, the blackest of people didn't come from the sun. People, they were living in the canopies of what do you call it? Uh, forest, or rainforests.
mm,
They lived in the canopy under the tree, and they were black. Now, if you ever seen, have you ever seen the skin of the Senegalese, and when he sweats, that you could actually see colors on his forehead,
yeah.
like red, green, blue?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's prismatic melanin, I call it.
Prismatic melanin. Wow. Okay.
Right. And it's prismatic because essentially we felt our feelings were shown through that, because the colors of the chakra would tell you where you were actually centering your thought process. It
Mm,
would show on you. You didn't have to communicate. Remember, this is the youngest form of communication that humanity has ever had. All these words,
yeah.
you get confused. We used to project pictures to each other's minds.
Mm,
We used to have certain colors that we changed to give you our feelings that went with that telepathic communication.
Wow,
I know it sounds like fantasy.
man, no, man, this is some this is DNA awakening information right here, man. We all feel this in our soul right now here in this conversation. Wow,
Praise
man.
give that,
This
give
dude, this
that.
dude, this dude here is no joke, family. I've been telling y'all that for a long time. This dude here is no joke. I'm gonna share this link once again, family. We about to close out. Let me share this link once again. July 17th is going down the metaphysical awakening of the melanated mind. Let me show y'all this flyer one more time. The brother's doing a rebroadcast of his most recent webinar. I advise y'all to get down and check this out, man, and wake up. That's what
Give
it's
back.
all about. It's all about waking up. Doc,
Give-
before we get out of here, once again, thank you. Leave them with any information you want to leave them with before we get out of here, Doc.
I really appreciate you, brother. Once again, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk
Indeed.
to the family. And from my wife, she sends her love. She wanted to call and find out how everything went. She thought we'd be off by then. But I am very happy about that. Our 800 number, of course, for any of our services, exemption or whatever it is that we're dealing with. I don't want to, mess up with that again.
Mhm.
Um, uh, just when you want to deal with that, you call and we'll give you more information about not getting it, that thing.
Mhm.
And if you want to deal with our university, you can call the 800 number, 800-847-1291, 800-847-1291. If you want to get on our on our mailing list, you can go up to our university's website at www.uksnow.org. UKS, U is United, K is in King, S is in Science, NOW.org. And just click where it says contact and then fill out, and then you become part of our mailing list. And then here's the other thing I really want to stress now because again, you have to look at this psychological attack. This is a covert attack,
Mm.
United States of America. So they're going to hit us by the land,
Mhm.
when it's going to be by sea, when they're going to start with the tsunamis and the hurricanes. I've warned my brothers and sisters in the Caribbean
Mhm.
that they're in for enormous storms coming up towards the end of this year.
Oh man.
So they should be ready for that because there's going to be a weather war. So they got to hit us with all three of the all four or five of the elements: fire, air, water, and earth. The fire is some form of nuke or some form of